What's going on, everyone? If you've been struggling to build your back muscles despite years of grinding in the gym, you're not alone. Most people treat back training like it's rocket science when the truth is they're making fundamental mistakes that kill their gains. Today I'm breaking down the exact science-based approach that transformed my pathetic back into one of my strongest body parts. And trust me, what you're about to learn will change everything about how you train. Here's something that might shock you. There's no such thing as the perfect back workout. I know that sounds crazy coming from someone about to give you a complete training blueprint, but hear me out. The concept of optimal training is actually a myth, because what works best depends entirely on your experience level, goals, and current situation. What I'm sharing today isn't some cookie-cutter routine, it's a framework based on legitimate research that you can adapt to your specific needs. Let's start with the foundation that most people completely ignore: proper warm-up and joint preparation. You cannot build an impressive back if your shoulders are constantly injured or your rotator cuffs are screaming in pain. The biggest mistake I see people make with rotator cuff exercises is treating them like cardio. They grab light weights and do these rapid-fire movements that accomplish absolutely nothing. Here's how to actually warm up your rotator cuffs effectively. Start with cable external rotations, but pay attention to the resistance angle. If you're standing upright and the cable is pointing down, you're basically doing an isometric bicep curl. The resistance needs to be perpendicular to your movement pattern. You want to feel tension, specifically when your arm is externally rotated. Do 8 to 10 controlled reps, focusing on the quality of each movement rather than speed. Another critical warm-up component is light pull-ups or lat pull-downs. The goal here isn't muscle fatigue, it's joint preparation. Your shoulders, elbows, and spine need to understand the movement patterns they're about to perform under load. Think of this as sending a message to your nervous system about what's coming next. Now let's talk about the cornerstone of back development: vertical pulling movements. Pull-ups are absolutely phenomenal for building width and thickness simultaneously, but here's where most people go wrong. They either do them too light and focus on high reps, or they load them too heavy and sacrifice range of motion. The sweet spot is typically 6 to 8 reps with added weight, maintaining perfect form throughout the entire range. One thing that drives me crazy is when people say weighted pull-ups aren't optimal because they're not machines or cables. The research comparing free weights to machines shows no significant difference in muscle activation when both are taken to failure. The key phrase there is taken to failure. Your muscle fibers don't care whether the resistance comes from a plate hanging from your waist or a cable stack. They only care about the mechanical tension and metabolic stress you create. Using straps for back training is another controversial topic that people get way too emotional about. Look, if your grip strength is limiting your back development, use straps. Your lats don't care about your ego, they care about progressive overload. I'd rather see someone do 8 perfect reps with straps than 5 compromised reps because their forearms gave out first. Let's address the elephant in the room: training intensity and reps in reserve. Most people severely underestimate how hard they need to train to stimulate muscle growth. When someone tells you to leave 2 reps in reserve, you probably leave 6 or 7 because stopping when things get uncomfortable is human nature. True muscular failure means your muscles physically cannot contract hard enough to move the weight, regardless of how much you want it to happen. This doesn't mean every set needs to be taken to complete failure, but your last set of each exercise absolutely should be. Research shows that taking at least your final set to failure significantly improves strength and size gains compared to stopping short. If you're not occasionally questioning your life choices during a set, you're probably not training hard enough. Here's a training structure that works incredibly well for back development. Start with your heaviest vertical pull. Weighted pull-ups or weighted chin-ups work perfectly. Do 1 moderate set to groove the movement pattern, then push your final set to absolute failure. Don't just stop when it gets hard. Keep grinding until the bar won't move no matter how much you strain. After vertical pulling, move to horizontal pulling patterns. This is where you can really target your mid-traps and rhomboids, which are crucial for both aesthetics and shoulder health. Wide grip seated cable rows work exceptionally well here, but the execution details matter enormously. Position yourself with a slight forward lean to feel a stretch in your mid-traps at the bottom position. As you pull, think about squeezing your shoulder blades together, rather than just moving the weight from point A to point B. Hold that peak contraction for 1 to 2 seconds on every single rep. This isn't just for show. That pause allows you to maximize muscle fiber recruitment in your mid-traps while minimizing lat dominance. The rep range for horizontal pulling should be higher than your vertical pulls, somewhere in the 12 to 15 range. Higher reps force you to use lighter weight, which prevents your stronger muscles from completely taking over the movement. You want to feel those mid-traps burning by the end of the set. Cable row variations offer some unique advantages that most people never explore. By adjusting where you position the weight on the strength curve, you can overload different portions of the range of motion. Loading the resistance at the bottom emphasizes the contracted position, while loading it at the top emphasizes the stretched position. Your back muscles are inherently stronger in lengthened positions, which means you typically fail at the beginning of the range of motion rather than the end. By occasionally emphasizing the stretch portion of the movement, you can better match the exercise difficulty to your strength curve. Let's talk about rear delt training, because most people do these exercises completely wrong. Traditional rear delt flies on a pec deck typically involve sitting normally and pulling straight back. This limits your range of motion to maybe half of what your rear delts can actually handle. Instead, position yourself sideways on the machine. You'll get an incredible stretch at the bottom position that's impossible to achieve with traditional positioning. Focus on sweeping the weight out rather than just pulling it back. Imagine you're trying to clear as much space on the floor as possible. This mental cue helps ensure you're maximizing the range of motion rather than cutting it short. The stretch position is arguably the most important part of any exercise for muscle growth. Recent research has shown that training muscles in lengthened positions can significantly enhance hypertrophy, particularly in less experienced lifters. While the effect might be less dramatic in advanced trainees, it's still worth emphasizing. That said, the stretch emphasis has been somewhat overhyped in recent years. It's not going to transform your physique overnight, but it is an important piece of the puzzle. The most important factors for muscle growth remain training hard, doing sufficient volume, and being consistent over time. Volume considerations change dramatically based on your training phase and experience level. When you're bulking and trying to maximize muscle growth, higher volumes typically produce better results. But when you're cutting and dealing with reduced calories and recovery capacity, maintaining high volume becomes counterproductive. During cutting phases, focus on maintaining intensity while reducing overall volume. You can maintain muscle mass on surprisingly little volume as long as you keep the effort level maximal. Some research suggests you can drop volume to as little as 1/9 of your baseline and still preserve muscle tissue. This makes sense because maintaining muscle is much easier than building it from scratch. The psychological aspect of training cannot be overlooked. If you dread your workouts or constantly feel beat up, you won't stick with your program long enough to see results. The most optimal program is the one you can follow consistently while progressively overloading over time. Sometimes this means choosing exercises you enjoy even if they're not theoretically perfect on paper. Advanced lifters often benefit from periodizing their training approach. You might emphasize different rep ranges, exercise selections, or training frequencies based on your current goals. During strength phases, focus on lower reps with compound movements. During hypertrophy phases, include more moderate rep ranges and isolation work. During cutting phases, reduce volume but maintain intensity. Exercise selection should reflect your specific weaknesses and goals. If your lats are lagging, emphasize vertical pulling variations and wide grip movements. If your mid-traps need work, focus on horizontal pulling with an emphasis on the squeeze. If your lower traps are weak, include exercises like prone Y raises or face pulls with an upward angle. Form quality becomes increasingly important as you advance in your training. Beginners can get away with mediocre technique because any stimulus is enough to drive adaptation. Advanced trainees need to be much more precise with their movement execution to continue progressing. Recovery between sessions is just as important as the training itself. Your back muscles are large and complex, involving multiple muscle groups working together. They need adequate time to repair and adapt between sessions. For most people, training back twice per week provides an optimal balance between stimulus and recovery. Sleep quality, nutrition, and stress management all play crucial roles in your recovery capacity. You can have the perfect training program, but if you're only sleeping 4 hours per night and eating garbage, your results will suffer accordingly. Tracking your progress becomes essential for long-term success. This doesn't just mean recording weights and reps, although that's important. Pay attention to how exercises feel, which muscles you can feel working, and how your recovery is progressing between sessions. Progressive overload can take many forms beyond just adding weight to the bar. You can increase reps, improve range of motion, add sets, or improve your mind-muscle connection. The key is consistently challenging your muscles in new ways over time. Supplement considerations for back training are relatively straightforward. Creatine can help with power output during heavy pulling movements. Caffeine can improve focus and effort levels during training. Beyond that, focus on getting adequate protein and overall calories to support your goals. The most common mistakes I see in back training include using too much momentum, not fully engaging the lats, neglecting horizontal pulling patterns, and not training hard enough. Address these fundamentals before worrying about advanced techniques or exotic exercises. Equipment considerations matter more for back training than most other body parts. A good set of straps, various grip attachments for cables, and access to a pull-up bar are essential. You don't need fancy machines, but having options for different grip positions and angles will help you target all aspects of your back development. Long-term progression requires patience and consistency. Back development typically takes longer than other muscle groups because the muscles are harder to see and feel. Take progress photos from multiple angles and be patient with the process. Results will come if you stay consistent with your training and nutrition. Your back training should evolve as you gain experience and identify your specific needs. What works in your first year of training might not be optimal in your fifth year. Stay curious, experiment with new exercises and techniques, but always keep the fundamentals as your foundation. The science of back training continues to evolve as new research emerges. Stay open to updating your approach based on new evidence, but don't chase every trend or abandon proven methods for the latest fad. The basics of training hard, being consistent, and progressively overloading will never go out of style. Remember that building an impressive back is a marathon, not a sprint. Focus on the process rather than obsessing over day-to-day changes. Trust in the science, train with intensity, and give your body time to adapt and grow.